welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog and podcast by the Fit Minds podcast for those listening on Spotify, and for the YouTubers, thank you for watching. So today we are going to dive into the topic of why you're feeling tired all the time. You're feeling constantly lethargic, you feel like you just have no energy, and you're dragging your feet everywhere. How many times have you answered this week when someone has said, "How are you?" "I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm wrecked." Or if someone's been asking how you are and you say you're good, but you know that you are buggered. This is really common. I often hear from many people I ask, "How are you feeling? How have you been?" Tired, really tired. Specifically parents. Parents seem to be the ones that are more tired than others, and I'm here to tell you it's okay if you feel tired. Being a parent, that's fairly normal, yes. There are going to be some ways that you can improve your fatigue levels already if you are feeling wrecked, sleep deprivation and the like. Having kids and being sleep deprived is going to be something that is beyond your control sometimes, but there are going to be some factors that you can control. And for everybody else who isn't going through sleep deprivation, there are going to be many ways that you can improve your energy levels, more than you'd really think. And more often than not, you see people reaching for things like caffeine when they're wrecked, when they're tired, and there are going to be a multitude of other things that you can reach for, or even so, things that you can do in your life that will change this factor for you, where you will actually have more energy, where you will feel like you have a better attitude and approach to your day and also to your everyday life. So, firstly though, before I dive too far into the podcast, I do need to address that if you are feeling chronic fatigue or tiredness out of nowhere, if all of a sudden you're just, completely totaled every day, you're getting enough sleep, so to speak, you're getting 7 hours if you're a male and 8 if you're a female, and you're still feeling like you haven't slept, there could be some underlying conditions which I'm not qualified to talk about. I can't give you a diagnosis on the internet. So make sure that you do visit your GP if you are finding that the lethargy is prolonged, if it is reoccurring, or if it is in conjunction with something that you think it doesn't feel right. There's going to be other symptoms. However, sometimes there aren't. Sometimes you can just have chronic fatigue as one of your symptoms of a condition or a chronic disease. Now, this is not to say that everybody on the internet has a chronic disease either. If you are concerned, go to your GP. There are tests that they can run, blood tests, etc., and even other tests, even asking a questionnaire where they can help you figure out whether there is an underlying condition. And there are a multitude of reasons why we can be tired due to different conditions, such as sleep apnea, pregnancy. If anyone who's been pregnant has felt the lethargy in those stages where you feel like you literally can't even stay awake for more than a couple of hours. Sleep disorders, chronic disease, hormone imbalances, insomnia in the sleep disorders category with sleep apnea, menopause, allergies, etc. There are literally a massive list of different chronic diseases and conditions and disorders that can actually be causing significant lethargy, and also too that can be caused by lethargy and lack of sleep, funnily enough. So sleep, this is why sleep is so important. If you are currently treating your sleep like it doesn't matter, if you think that you can live off 5 to 6 hours, there is a small percentage of the population who actually can do this with no adverse side effects. But there is going to be, for majority of the population, a requirement of a minimum amount of sleep for daily function, for health, and even for your mental health, not just your physical health. So other reasons why you could be experiencing lethargy outside of what I'm going to discuss could be things like mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, some medications, sicknesses, and if you are immune compromised or if your immune system is low. Now, some of these issues can actually tie in with each other. So, if you do have a multitude of these problems, then they actually could be feeding into one another, where you've got extreme lethargy and you are just cooked. However, as I mentioned, I'm not a GP, I'm not a medical professional in the sense that I cannot, I can't prescribe medications, and I certainly can't discuss any sort of chronic diseases, illnesses, or even give you any sort of diagnoses or advice on mental health conditions. So that is a disclaimer that I have to discuss before I go too far into this. The side of lethargy that I'm going to tackle is the nutrition side, and certainly the exercise side, which funnily enough has a bigger impact on your levels of fatigue than you would think. So, any other reasons other than chronic disease and illness, sleep conditions, etc., will be as follows. You're unorganized. You have no plan, no structure to your day. And so this can then lead to the next issues we see with sleep deprivation, or at least lack of sleep, is that you don't prioritize sleep. You treat sleep like it's the last thing you do at the end of the day. It's kind of like when you're getting changed, you take off your shoes first, you take off your socks, and then you take off your pants, and then you take off your top. And so you're treating sleep like your top. It's the last thing that you take off, or whatever you usually take off. That sleep is the last thing that you consider. And I see this quite often, where people are saying, I can't get enough sleep, I'm not getting to bed early enough. And even that statement itself tells me you're not treating sleep like it's important. At night, when you know you need to be in bed by a certain time, if your schedule is very busy, it has to look like making it quite a tight schedule at night, where you don't cram as much as possible into that evening. Most people are getting to an evening and kind of just winging it. They don't really have a set amount of time that they give themselves to make dinner. Even so, they don't prepare dinner beforehand, thinking that maybe that might save some time during the week, doing meal prep, for example. And every night is just kind of like they're cruising, they come home, they take off their shoes, or they go to the gym, and they're at the gym and they're just taking their sweet ass time with their workout, and see how everything is just delayed. So that leads me to my next point. You're delaying things during the day that then have too much to do at night, right? So if you work from home, or if you run a business, you are basically procrastinating during the day. If you're listening, you're probably thinking, yeah, okay, I've done this a couple of times, or maybe you're doing it quite frequently and not even realizing, whereby you're then left with a ton of shit to do at night. It's like you're doing emails late at night, you think, oh my God, that's right, I forgot to do that thing again, I forgot to send that email, I forgot to post that letter, I better get to the post office. And then you're just jamming as much as you can into this afternoon because you've been procrastinating and avoiding all day. So again, this all kind of centralizes around the idea that you're being unorganized, there's no plan, there's no structure, you're delaying, you're procrastinating, you're staying up late doing things that don't matter. A really common issue we're seeing right now is the phenomena of people on technology at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. In fact, more recently, through doing my own market research to figure out what times people are active on social media, would you believe, this is crazy, right? People on TikTok are more active between the hours of 11 and 4, right? 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. their local time. Now, this is frightening because this is where people go for a place of comfort. They're going on social media and they're basically just scrolling and scrolling. How many times have you gotten into bed and you're watching Reels or you're watching TikTok and you're just scrolling and you're just one after the other? Every time you watch a reel and you get stimulated by something, you might giggle or laugh or learn something, you're getting these little mini dopamine hits. And this is where it can get really crucial, because at night, exposing yourself not just to the blue light, but just to any light, any technology late at night, is a stimulus that your brain doesn't need for sleep. In fact, it's the polar opposite of what it needs. Imagine this, right? If you're going to sleep, you're closing your eyes and you're in darkness, and you sleep at your best in darkness, without any noise, without any light. Imagine, and obviously some people, like me, I can fall asleep in the middle of a movie if my eyes are shut, or if I'm laying down, I'm comfortable. But if you're exposing yourself to stimulus where your brain is quite active, where you're having to focus in on things with your eyes, where you're having to think, or even not think, where you're having a lot of just, white noise and music as well, this can all be a severe distraction from what your body should be doing, which is winding down for sleep time. And interestingly enough, it's adults behaving like children, right? So when we were kids and we didn't have a sleep routine, and even for you as adults who've got children now, your kids are absolute assholes to get to bed sometimes, and getting them into a sleep routine is really hard to get them to wind down, to get them to relax into sleep time, okay? What we're doing now as adults is staying up on social media, watching TV, binge watching episodes, watching movies to get to sleep, using our phones, listening to music, listening to TikTok, seeing TikTok reels, watching TikTok videos, watching reels on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I don't even care what platform it is, but having a phone in front of you and looking at that and stimulating yourself late at night is going to feed into a sleep issue. So obviously one of the biggest solutions to this would be putting that freaking phone down a couple of hours before you need to go to sleep. And I've mentioned this, and I spent a lot of time talking about this in check-ins with clients. Your phone doesn't need to be touched late at night. If you're forgetting to do things, sure, write them down somewhere, put it in your calendar. But you don't need to be doing things on your phone late at night, because you should have been doing them during the day. If you're finding you're doing things that you should have been doing during the day, think about it that way during the day when you're procrastinating. I'm going to regret this later because I'm going to be staying up again. These are shit habits to get into, basically. This is the reverse of good habits. And it wouldn't matter who you are. It's going to screw up your rhythm, your sleep rhythm. There's an actual rhythm called the circadian rhythm. And the circadian, some people pronounce it differently, but circadian rhythm is basically your body's own body clock, basically. It's a very interesting way of looking at it, but it's the behaviors and the methods that we use in order to get ourselves to go to sleep, right? So it's like a cycle, a 24-hour cycle. And you can look this up. It's intriguing, but it needs to follow a natural pattern. And if you are stimulating yourself all day and then all night, where is the part where your brain gets to wind down? Where is the part where the stimulus is taken away? Where is the part where there is relaxation and mindfulness and distancing yourself from anything that is either stressful or stimulating? Because sometimes we don't know the difference, and sometimes having those things constantly going off in our faces all the time, things like notifications and your phone buzzing, or you might have music in the background, or the kids are playing with toys. And so this is basically constant distraction and stimulation away from sleep time, and sleep time needs to be protected. To wind down for sleep, you can't just expect your body to just snap off to sleep in 15 minutes. And if you're not falling asleep quickly, it's probably because you have far too much stimulation really close to bedtime, or even so, you might be having, and my next point is having too much caffeine during the day. So I can guarantee that most people listening to this podcast/vlog are probably consuming way too much caffeine. And I do sound like a bit of a Karen, saying don't consume so much caffeine, but really don't consume so much caffeine. It's proven that obviously past a certain point of caffeine consumption, we actually start to experience negative side effects of caffeine. And that's things like the shakes and things like anxiety, things like sleep deprivation, because even though people say they can sleep after consuming caffeine, of course you can, it's just not the right type of sleep. So you actually end up forfeiting deep sleep, and you are sleeping quite lightly. You might feel like you're asleep, but you are not getting enough of that deep sleep. Now there are 3 different types of sleep. We've got light, REM and deep, right? And so our body will actually is quite smart and knows how to top us up of particular ones that we're lacking in. So if we haven't had enough light sleep the next day's worth of sleep, it will actually try and top up light sleep, and vice versa with REM and deep sleep. It's very interesting. It's not all across a 24-hour period, but our body does like to catch up on what it's lacking in. However, if you're doing day in, day out with less sleep than required, the 7 hours for men and the 8 for women, you will find that it is a never-ending cycle of issues with sleep deprivation and all of the symptoms you get from that. You will be more irritable, you will think more negatively, you will have negative thinking patterns with a lack of sleep. They say that negative thought patterns actually increase exponentially. So it's like you will be a more negative person from getting a lack of sleep. Now the next point I'll move on to is you're trying to fit too much into the day, which obviously relates to the previous point. You're multitasking instead of staying task focused. So If you're not just procrastinating, but switching to and from tasks constantly, you're not going to get anything finished. So you're not actually going to finish the task that you started. If you are trying to, do something that is fairly, I suppose, like monotonous, if you're folding the washing and you are listening to a podcast at the same time, that's okay. But if you're trying to do something quite complex, like finish an assignment and have a conversation with your mum, probably not. So it's in these cases where if you're trying to multitask, you end up being less time efficient, and basically as a result, you end up forfeiting the time later on in the day. So obviously the solution is stay task focused, remove the distractions. I've used this quite a lot in other podcasts and even in educational videos. Turn off your notifications on your phone other than your phones and text messages, so your phone calls and texts, because that will actually provide you with a bit of respite from distractions. Now, I know it's going to be a bit weird to start off with. How do I turn off all my notifications? I need them. You don't need them. No one needs to be, reachable at any time of the day. Keep only your calls and texts on in your phone, and you will thank me later, because it gives you respite from this constant dinging all the time where your brain is being taken away from what you're doing. And it will be much easier not to be distracted, not to feel like you've got to multitask. Multitasking isn't actually scientifically proven to achieve anything faster, in that if you keep switching from task to task to task, and now I mean within 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes here, it actually takes you 10 minutes to refocus on a big project, up to 20 minutes even to properly refocus on something like an assignment or a project at work. So you're actually using more time to get your brain to refocus on what you are doing. So the multitasking is taking away from time that you could get back at night that you might be spending doing other things that you didn't get done during the day, or that you forgot to do because you got distracted. So obviously if you make a list, if you have more structure, if you write things down, if you give yourself a time diary, if you have something to go by, a planner, if you have Google spreadsheets, whatever it is that works for you, but getting better structure and planning and repetition with habits in your life and your lifestyle will actually help you stay on track and stay on task, and then actually improve your sleep as well. Now, along with that, there is also stress levels. This is a common one. I think there's a big blanket that's kind of thrown across stress, like as if it's just one huge experience. It's just like, I'm stressed. There's so much stress going on in my life at the moment. Newsflash, everybody is stressed, and this is not to take away from your stress. Life is stressful. There are going to be lots of adult responsibilities that make us stressed. There are going to be things like, having to follow up with appointments. There are going to be things like paying bills. There are going to be like trying to catch up for a social life. There are going to be things like running around after your children, all the appointments that they have and all the sports they play, and you feel like you're burning the candle at both ends. And also your career. There's just, responsibilities on top of responsibilities on top of responsibilities. And it's no coincidence that everybody is feeling stressed. I feel so stressed, but no one's really doing anything about it. It's just like all the stress is coming at us and we're receiving it, but we're not really understanding how to audit our lives, how to look at what's important to us, what's probably more important, things that we need to probably let go of, things that we need to say no to, etc., etc. So there's that prioritising that comes into it. And stress, funnily enough, is really addictive. So you may not know it and you may not think it, but you may have an addiction to stress. Some people who, for example, find it really difficult to relax, and they say, oh, look, I couldn't sit down and read a book, or I couldn't, do nothing for an hour, or I couldn't just meditate, or I couldn't just take myself to the beach, and I couldn't be by myself. Other than the idea that perhaps they want to be constantly stimulated, there could be an addiction to stress there, because you look at it this way: if they can't relax, where is their mind constantly? If you can't relax and unwind, what is the alternative? And that could be being in this constant state of this fight or flight type of situation where you're just not calm, where you're not able to find yourself feeling centered, or even that you are not finding a point where you don't feel like you need to do anything. So this can lead to, obviously, lethargy. Feeling stressed can then lead to feeling tired and feeling exhausted and feeling like, oh my God, I'm trying to juggle way too much. And that's probably the truth. You probably are trying to juggle way too much, and you should stop trying to juggle. So that leads me to my next point. You're doing everything for everyone else, but not for yourself. If you could audit your life now and write down how many things you've done today that were for you and how many things you did today that were for other people, you'd probably be very sad with yourself. You'd probably get to a point where you go, wow, I haven't done anything for myself today other than eat and maybe drink water. And you'd be surprised how many people tell me they still don't drink enough water because they don't get time. This is a major cop-out. It is not manageable to fit too much into a day, such as complicated food processes or even things like, running around from, if you've got 3 jobs, if you're trying to go to 3 different shifts, if you've got, 5 kids and you're the only person taking care of them and you don't have for example, a creche at your gym, or you don't have help out at home, or you don't have some sort of support network, it can be really difficult to juggle life, right? You've got lots of things going on. But if you're not doing anything for yourself at all in there and it's all for other people, there's no wonder that you're tired and that you're exhausted. If you're burning out as a result of putting lots of energy out, how do you expect you to feel energized? How do you expect yourself to feel like you've got anything left? You won't. You're not recharging. Most people aren't recharging. If they're feeling like they're burning out, they're not recharging. Recharging means saying no more often. It may mean saying no to your children. I know that probably is heartbreaking, but it may mean saying not right now, or maybe later, or I need to do this first, or I would, for me to be happy, or I need this in my quality well picture. We used to say that when we were kids with our parents. It's like, what is everybody's quality well picture? How can we tick boxes for everybody here? It wasn't just about the kids. It was about the whole family. So without going too far into it, because I'm not a parent. I mean, I've said this in previous podcasts as well. I'm not a parent. I probably will be a parent one day, and I'm not about to harp on about what to do with kids because I've got no idea. But what I do know is that if you treat yourself like shit and you're a mother or a father, it's not going to end well, ever. And you will resent it, and you will be tired, and you will be exhausted. Taking little moments here and there is key. Taking every opportunity you can, and also not being afraid to ask for help, which is often a common problem I see with parents, is they feel like they have to take everything on their shoulders. Even business owners, it's not too dissimilar. We feel like we have to take everything on our shoulders and that we can't ask for help, and that getting help is weak, but it's not. It's the polar opposite. Getting help actually allows you to be a better parent. It allows you to be a better human being for yourself, and also even as a coach or a business owner, same thing. Getting some help and support. Teams always do better than somebody by themselves. Why? Because it's a joint effort, and when somebody breaks down or isn't doing well, another person can step in. So that's probably the point I would get to, is that I can't give any parenting advice, and I sure as hell can't give any sort of psychological advice. But what I can say is that it's fairly logical. If you're burning out, you're not doing enough for yourself, you need to figure out how to start doing nice things here and there for yourself. And certainly don't dismiss it. Anytime someone says that to you, oh, you need to do some nice things for yourself, it's going to be different for every single person. Not everyone can take a bath, because you may have a 2-year-old that literally wants to be there with you every second of the day. Not everybody is going to be able to sit down and read a book. Not everybody's going to be able to meditate. I hate meditating. I couldn't think of anything worse. You might be able to go for a walk though, with a little one in the stroller, and at least that they might enjoy. There are opportunities for you to take little moments here and there. And it might be that you've got to figure out what those are so that you can take them. Whether you're a parent, or whether you're a business owner, or whether you're a person who's not a parent and you're just finding it hard to juggle university and everything else that's going on and being thrown at you in life. Taking a moment and taking time back for yourself is exactly that. It's taking time back for yourself. It's not saying there's something else that's more important to do right now. And it's saying, I'm going to remove myself from where I am right now. Or even maybe I'll plan to in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and things like mini holidays here and there, so I can have some respite, so I can have a break. And taking a break will lead to, obviously, a bit more of that recharge than giving out energy constantly. So as I mentioned on the caffeine note, I'll go back to that because I really want to chat about this a little bit further. Caffeine consumed 8 hours before sleep time will see that you will disrupt sleep significantly. If it's not disrupting sleep entirely and actually, where you're struggling to fall asleep, it's going to probably disrupt the depth of your sleep. So caffeine, meaning coffee, energy drinks. Weirdly, green tea, the caffeine from green tea doesn't seem to affect people as much, But certainly if you are tired already and you're using caffeine in large doses, above the recommended daily dosage of caffeine, then you will probably see, and it's usually honestly more than 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day, you will see that this will affect your sleep, and it's only going to give you a boost of energy for a couple of hours, and then you're going to crash from it anyway. So there is that, if you're tired and you're tired in the afternoon, you probably should let yourself get tired. Just let yourself get tired. There is also too in the afternoon, a lot of people get that sleepy feeling in the afternoon. I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, that maybe it could be a blood sugar, and that you may not have eaten enough for the day. You might need some more carbohydrates, and you also may need some more water. You may need some slow release carbohydrates instead of just quick release like chalky and stuff like that. You may need more water, because being dehydrated, you will find that you will be more tired. You'll be losing concentration. You can also experience dizziness, loss of vision, etc. There's so many things that result from not drinking enough water. But in that, caffeine also dehydrates you, so you need to drink extra water every time you have coffee and caffeine. So as the day drags on though, and you're starting to get more sleepy, if you've been sitting down all day and you're sedentary all day, let's say you work at a laptop and your steps are really low, probably another reason why you're feeling a bit sleepy. So the sedentary lifestyle and not moving around will actually very quickly lead to a lethargic feeling. It's like sitting and watching a movie, you feel like falling asleep. It's no coincidence. Even when you're driving, sometimes you feel sleepy because you are sedentary. If you're moving, it actually helps with energy release, and energy production. You do find yourself getting tired if you're sitting at a desk staring at a screen all day. So the solution to that is get up and do a couple of laps of the office, get outside for your lunch break, go for a 15-minute walk in your lunch break, answer your emails. If you want to go for a walk along the river, answer your emails, or even some text messages while you go for a walk. Make sure you get some sort of physical activity in the day. And if the afternoon you're starting to dip and you say, I'm just tired, I just don't have the energy to exercise. Weirdly, if you do exercise, you actually may find you'll have an increase in energy. So it may be because you've been sitting on your dot all day that's why you've got this drop in energy. So another point that I will talk about is that you will feel guilty for napping or simply not napping when you probably need to. People have this really shit attitude towards naps. It's like when we were kids, we knew we had to nap because we probably weren't sleeping very often, and our parents encouraged us to. And then as we got older, some people feel guilty for napping. They feel like they should be doing something else. They avoid napping. If their kids are napping, they're doing stuff around the house and they're trying to get things done while the kids are napping instead of napping at the same time as the children or napping with them. Napping is fantastic. It used to be like a common occurrence in my family, in my dad's household, and it was at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like 6 years old, 7 years old, and my dad would just literally call that it was nap time, and that was it. Everybody was lying down for a nap. We weren't allowed to be up and playing around. We had to lie down, and we all felt weird if we didn't, because we'd be the only person awake, and that was the strangest thing, is being awake in a household by yourself. So we all ended up sleeping, just going for a good old 1 hour sleep. Napping is fantastic. If you can fit in naps on the weekend, and if you can't, fit them in. Just literally stop booking so much shit in on your weekends. I see people do things on their weekends, and it's almost like they're meant to be relaxing on weekends, days off from work, and they are running around like mad from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and they got this event to go to and this event, and oh no, I won't get time for a nap because I've got all this shit on. Okay, newsflash. If you book all that in, of course you're not going to have time to nap. It's okay to say no to some things. It's okay to say, look, I can't make it to that. I'm so sorry, I got another event on that day. Or, looking at your weekend and thinking, have I overcommitted? Have I said yes to too much this weekend? Have I put too much in? Have I penned too much in my diary? Probably. Give yourself a chance. If you do have a full weekend, maybe the next weekend, look at having a little bit of a quieter one. Take some downtime. I know it probably sounds really foreign if you've got a really busy lifestyle, but stop complaining about being tired if you keep booking so much into your life and not actually having any sort of time to just take a nap, guilt-free, lie down, relax your eyeballs, put your phone away, and there is nothing more important than where you are right now taking that nap. There's that mindfulness as well, bringing yourself back to where you are. Same with going to sleep as well. One of the most common issues with sleep deprivation is that people are up late at night, just buzzing. The brain's just going like a million miles an hour. Can't stop thinking. If you are doing that, you're probably struggling with this idea that where you are right now, the most important thing that you should be doing is sleeping or napping or what you're doing, focusing on what you're doing, not actually 10 million other things that you could be doing tomorrow or that you could have done, or thinking about something you did 10 years ago that you regret. Obviously, this goes down the path of psychological behaviors and patterns, not necessarily my specialty, but certainly practicing a little bit more mindfulness and bringing yourself back to your calm, reminding yourself where you are and that it's okay to relax, giving yourself permission to do so, can often help you improve your sleep and let yourself have naps here and there as well. So don't feel guilty for napping. It's fantastic, and any health professional will recommend for you to nap if you can, if you're currently not getting enough sleep at night. Obviously, if the napping turns into a regular occurrence and then you really can't sleep because you're constantly napping, well, then that's where it might be a bit of an issue. But I think most people could probably afford with a nap. Probably not daily. Maybe if you're a shift worker, yes, you might have to, but maybe on weekends when you can catch up on the lost sleep from the week. And in that as well, sleeping in on weekends, can't tell you, I think how many people I see that don't sleep in on weekends anymore. It's like, oh, what's a sleep in? Encourage your family to sleep in as well. I know it's hard because kids don't want to sleep in, but if they do and you do, awesome. Take it. Don't get up and try and do shit at 5 a.m. because you feel guilty, because you feel like you should be doing something for the day. Sleep in. That sleep will actually allow you to experience your life at a higher quality, at a higher frequency, and with more positive energy and more positive thoughts for the day, and you can show up better for your family if you just let yourself sleep. If you don't actually feel bad for, sleeping past a certain point, and just realize that that is the most important thing you could be doing, is sleeping, is catching up on sleep, is resting, is recovering, so that you can come back better and feel better. So as I mentioned previously, let's go down the food route, because obviously we've already talked about lifestyle factors and maybe, being able to shuffle things around and improve that side of things. But let's talk about the fact that you may not be eating enough carbs, as I mentioned previously, whether it's in the afternoon or whether it's just in general. You might be trying to eat a low amount of carbohydrates, and that can actually cause severe lethargy itself, because we know carbs are great for brain function. And also obviously your blood glucose, your blood sugar levels. And you may not be eating enough quality food in general. Things like living off takeaway or liquid calories. Mum's going through the drive-through Macca's and getting a Happy Meal and not eating anything else for the day, or getting a triple shot coffee in the morning and then not eating anything until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe a ham cheese sandwich, picking it up from the servo when you pick up the kids from sport or something like that. And so in this case, your nutrition is shithouse. You're not really eating quality meals. You're not sitting down to eat them. You're not eating enough fruit and veggies. You're not even getting enough protein, and you're probably not even eating enough carbohydrates. And even in that as well, even if you were eating enough carbs and fats, you're eating the things that aren't going to give you sustained energy. You're eating foods that aren't going to fill you up for very long, and you're even eating foods that aren't going to give you sustained blood sugar levels either. So if you're eating things like McDonald's, it's kind of laden with saturated fats, and even that in itself is not going to provide any sort of sufficient sustained energy. So obviously, there are going to be parts of a McDonald's meal that might provide some energy, such as the carbohydrates from potato, like the chips, and maybe from the meat patty, the protein to fill you up a little bit. But outside of that, there's no veggies, so there's no essential nutrients contained in McDonald's meals. Not to an extent where you'd be meeting your requirements for the day, that's for sure. So you may be eating like shit, and also if you're relying on liquid calories, things like soft drinks, and it's actually the most common issue in America is fizzy drinks. Sugary fizzy drinks, not because sugar is the devil, but it's because people are literally reaching for these because they know when they have one, they get a sugar hit, but they're not eating anything else, and so they're not actually getting any sort of essential nutrients. They're not getting any iron. They're not getting any sort of riboflavin. They're not getting any sort of vitamin B. They're not getting any sort of folate. They're not getting any of those buzzing, energy-full essential nutrients, which most people think are probably very boring. But it's not a coincidence that people who eat really well end up, energized. They end up having a great day. They end up feeling on top of the world. They've also slept really well. It's not a coincidence. It goes hand in hand. Your nutrition has a major influence on your energy levels and also how tired you're feeling. So the next point, and I will talk about this probably at length in regards to what you could be deficient in if you are. But Essential nutrient deficiency. You may have a nutrient deficiency. This is super common with women because a lot of women don't eat enough red meat, or as well they have some sort of impaired ability to absorb iron. So iron deficiency is a really common one. If you do think, and honestly, you're probably not going to be able to tell, but iron deficiencies, you can get them tested. So you can get your bloods tested with your doctor, your GP. I do suggest doing that for most women anyway, because I think it's something that is beneficial to know. Riboflavin, so vitamin B2, niacin, vitamin B3, pantothenic acid, vitamin B5, which is something that we actually need quite a lot of, pyridoxine, vitamin B6. I'm terrible at pronouncing biochemical compounds and essential nutrients. Folate, vitamin B9. So there's obviously the B complex there, which we need quite a lot of for energy provision. Vitamin B12. Vitamin D from the sun, and then vitamin C as well for immunity and obviously the absorption of iron. So, and then magnesium. So magnesium is probably one of the ones that quite a lot of people are going to be quite deficient in, because magnesium is in some very strange foods that not everybody is going to consume a lot of. So how do you find out if you're deficient in these? You can get your bloods done, and certainly maybe if you track your food, you can see whether you're hitting these nutrients in your nutrient panel in MyFitnessPal. And if not, you could look at, yes, supplementing them back in, but maybe looking at eating some more foods that are higher in these nutrients, more dense in those nutrients. So not enough, obviously from a essential nutrient deficiency, there are a couple reasons why you could have that. Is you could have obviously a condition that can cause the deficiency, meaning that you need more of it than the average person, or that you have trouble absorbing it. That's going to be one of the reasons. You could be consuming enough of it for the daily recommended dose, or your RDI, but you may not actually be consuming enough for the condition you might have, or you may not be consuming enough of something else that helps you absorb that other nutrient. So funnily enough, sometimes we actually need more of one nutrient than the other to help. So obviously we need, for example, iron and vitamin C to be paired up with each other for us to absorb iron properly. So in that case, obviously that leads me to the next point, is that you might need to change up your food variety a little bit. You might not be getting enough food variety or fruit and veg. If you find yourself eating the same fruit and veg over and over again, that might be a problem. And I mean, if you're having like 2 bananas a day and you're just eating just broccoli in your lunch and dinner, and you're just having rice in your lunch and dinner as well, and for breakfast and afternoon tea you're having oats. So it's the repetition of these food items which are seeing that you're not really getting the rainbow of nutrition and food, and you might need to diversify a little bit, get a bit more variety. So the way I described in my previous podcast was actually with Deciphering Cravings, so 2 podcasts ago, to try and practice not repeating the same food items over and over again, and that can help you incorporate variety. And I don't mean from day to day, but certainly across your day. So maybe have some fruit like berries in your breakfast, and you could have green apple as another piece of fruit for the day, maybe some banana in the afternoon. And then obviously for lunch, try and have, as mentioned in previous podcasts, those 3 to 5 serves of veggies daily. That's like a cup is basically a serving, and getting that into your lunch and dinner, and actually changing the vegetables or the greens up so that you've got variety. Even colors, they say eat the rainbow for a reason. Changing the colors of the different vegetables and fruits that you are eating so that you are getting more variety. And that also applies to things like nuts and seeds. If you have nut and seed allergies, that is a bit of a problem, but we can also look at the consumption of legumes instead. There's lots of different alternatives. And getting things like your healthy fats in as well, and even things like eggs, unless you have egg allergies, which are quite common too. There is a lot of people out there with egg allergies, but you can also get your omega-3s from things like walnuts and supplementing fish oil. So this sounds really complicated. You're thinking, how do I start doing all these things? I can't even get my food right. Start small. Start by adjusting meals one at a time so that you can slowly incorporate new items that you enjoy, that you know that you're not allergic to as well, and that you don't react to, and that are going to give you, and obviously the low-fat dairy in there as well, that's going to give you the variety across the different essential nutrient profile. And if in doubt, start tracking what you eat, put it in MyFitnessPal, and it will tell you if it's a reliable entry and it actually contains the nutrients in that entry, it will tell you whether or not you're hitting your requirements for the day. And you can look at supplementing back in some of them, but not all of them, because food is always best. So sometimes you can supplement things like magnesium and fish oil, because obviously omega-3s are a little bit harder to get in, and so is magnesium. So you're not drinking enough water, as I mentioned earlier, so this is a massive one. The recommendation for water consumption can actually really vary depending on lots of different things like your weight, your height, your age, your sex, how much you're exercising and moving daily, what type of temperature that you live in as well, and the climate you live in. So the general recommendations, though, you're looking at if you're fairly sedentary and not really moving for the day and you're a female, it really, again, depends on your weight and where you are with that, but usually it's around between 2 and 3 litres really. And then obviously there's water that can be consumed through your food as well. So in your fruit and veggies, they contain water, and even some of your meats contain water as well. In fact, all of your meats will contain some water. And for men, you're looking at kind of upwards to between 2.7 and 3.5 if you're sedentary. But obviously if you're exercising and if you're in hotter conditions, or if you're in both, you're going to need a bit more water than that. So you probably will need an extra 1 to 2 litres on top of what you've already consumed for the day, depending on how much exercise you've done and how hot you are. So again, not drinking enough water, and this is in my previous podcast, will lead to lethargy and loss of concentration. It's just a massive contribution. If you're drinking too much coffee and not enough water, there's your problem right there. And also if you're drinking a lot of fizzy soft drinks, etc., or juices, you're not getting enough clear water by itself, and that's going to be a problem too. So not enough sunshine daily is obviously the vitamin D deficiency if you have one, which is actually quite common after all the lockdowns. So make sure that you get out in the sun for 10 to 15 minutes a day. It is required. You do need sunshine. You should not be avoiding it unless you have a sunshine allergy, which some people do have allergies to sun. But in that case, you can always supplement vitamin D back in. I don't suggest doing that every single day though. If you are a night shift worker, this makes it very difficult for you to get sunshine. But it is a good idea to just literally try and get that last little bit in the afternoon if you can, and obviously not in the direct heat in the middle of the day, so you're not getting burnt. But getting enough sunshine, 10 to 15 minutes, even up to 20 minutes for some people, is required to get your vitamin D intake daily. So another point is that you may be overtraining or over-exercising. So this one is quite common with people I see that are really dedicated to their fitness journey, but probably not so much their nutrition, or even so they're dedicated to both and they're almost exercise obsessed. In this case, you may see that you might be over-exercising. How do you know if you're doing that? Well, if you're starting to feel flogged after every one of your training sessions, or if you do start to lose concentration, etc., and you're getting enough sleep and you're getting enough of these fruit and veggies, and you're thinking, I'm ticking all these other boxes, but you're training 7 days a week, or if you're doing intensive exercise 7 days a week, and I mean if it's something like weights training, or if you're doing intensive cardio, if it's not just a walk, then you may be overtraining, and it's whereby you haven't taken enough time to recover your nervous system in order then to come back and exercise again efficiently. And so in that case, your adrenal function is impacted, and coming back to exercise is going to be pretty pointless. So it's kind of like a cycle. And if you're trying to do 2 or 3 training sessions a day, like you're doing a morning one and a night one, and it's consuming all this time, and then you've got no sleep, or you've got a lack of sleep, and you think that the harder you train, the better your results will be, if anything, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. You really don't need to be training that much. If you are, using 2-3 hours a day training for 6-7 days a week, that's where you've got a bit of a problem. And if you just taper that back slightly, whether it's the amount of time you're training or the frequency that you're training, maybe to 4, 5, or 6 occasions weekly at most, and if you're reducing those hours, maybe from 3 down to 1 to 2, really just get that right down, even an hour and a half ideally, you may find a significant improvement in not only your energy levels, but your performance in your exercise sessions and the results that you've been wanting all along. So obviously the final point before I finish up will be if you are using drugs and alcohol frequently, that will affect your sleep significantly. So if you're finding you're drinking wine at night, it will impact your sleep. People think that alcohol helps you sleep to a certain extent, and then there is actually a point where it basically increases your heart rate, and it actually causes more harm than good. So overconsumption of alcohol as well will impact your sleep significantly and the quality of sleep that you're getting. And drug use, that's probably a no-brainer, but drug use will impact your sleep, including medications. So both illicit and legal medications. So illicit substances and legal medications are going to impact your sleep to some degree. Some of them, not all of them, but you will find that there will be some that will. So the idea would be to try and reduce alcohol consumption responsibly. I'm not the devil, especially for everyday people. I certainly don't think that cutting out alcohol altogether is viable unless you're a person who can do that. But if you're a person who is fairly social, perhaps it might look like reducing the amount of occasions that you choose to drink alcohol, and perhaps just reducing the amount of beverages that you do have, in that you can practice moderation and possibly, and most likely, improve more than one factor in your life, not just your sleep issues. So try replacing the glass of wine at night with some relaxation methods. If you want to listen to whale noises, you can, but it could be anything from journaling to creative drawing. It could be knitting, going for a late night walk, listening to a podcast like this one, listening to your favorite music, but finding your place of calm, happiness, and peace that isn't reaching for technology, drugs, alcohol, and the list goes on with everything that could be working against you and your stress levels and your sleep. So that's about it from me. Obviously, the elephant in the room is if you are, currently not getting enough sleep, try to improve it over the next 2 weeks. Look at it as a major goal. Put your sleep first. Make sure that your sleep is prioritized, and it's more important to you because the benefits of hitting your sleep goal are well beyond what you're currently experiencing with sleep deprivation. All right, that's it from me. Looking forward to doing another podcast for you soon. Thanks. Bye.